That's why the human shield narrative has to stick. Like, oh, Hamas is actually blocking the roads. Hamas is actually forcing people to stay at their homes at gunpoint, which is like a fucking insane thing to say, because it's not like there aren't journalists out there. This entire it's not like there aren't humans in fucking Palestine and Gaza. You can only make this argument stick if you believe that anyone who believes in Palestinian emancipation is not like a human being and is operating at this, as this like hive mind together.
What we know so far, that this massive air bombardment is probably the biggest of the war so far. And what we think that means is that it's providing cover for a ground incursion on a larger scale than we've seen in the past. Expanding ground operations is what the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force spokesman, said. Now, in the past, in 2014, a massive bombardment and the cutting of mobile and internet links did presage a ground invasion. And that is what we've seen. Not just internet links, also mobile phones. The Red Crescent has said not only can they not reach their people inside the Gaza Strip, but they can't reach each other. So it's not possible to call an ambulance. And probably many people need an ambulance tonight. Now, the healthcare is a particular issue because earlier in the day, the IDF said that the Hamas headquarters was underneath the Al-Shifa hospital. Now, the Al-Shifa hospital is the biggest hospital in Gaza, and that is not only looking after many hundreds of patients, but people are sheltering there because they think it's safer. But the IDF said that that hospital and other hospitals have Hamas installations around them.
This is very, very scary stuff if you know how Israel moves, you know?
So tonight, many will be worrying that the IDF, the Israelis, now see the hospitals as, they would put it, legitimate targets. Now, whether Hamas is there or not, that would mean huge bloodshed. That would be an absolute disaster for the people of Gaza. But we can't know whether that's happening or not because the links are cut. Now, there have been signs in the days up till now that this ground invasion was coming because we've seen incursions last night and the night before. We went down to see a reserve brigade earlier in the day, and they are just within a kilometre of the Gaza border. Israel's reservists are ready to go into Gaza the moment they get the order. After hearing about the Hamas attack on October the 7th, Major Shraga Stern jumped on a plane from Chicago in order to fight.
Getting there into every single rocket, finding every single terrorist, detonating every single bomb and booby trap, and getting those...
Bro, Chicago? Dude, what the fuck, dude? What the fuck? Dude, look, I've said this about the Russian conscripts as well that are forced in to go to fucking the invasion of Ukraine because, like, some of them have no say in the matter, you know what I mean? And I feel bad for them, and I'm certain that there's people inside of the IDF as well that probably don't fucking want to do this, even though, you know, I feel like there's a higher approval for a ground invasion or IDF operations in Gaza in general than there was for invading Ukraine and Russia. But this guy, like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, he's so fucking horny, dude. He's just like, nah, this is great. I cannot wait to go do murders. Like, come on, dude.
Terrorist murderers out of their tunnels. That's my main objective, and that will get done.
And the cost to the Israeli army?
Apparently there's a bloody war ahead of us. But as Israelis and as Jewish people, we have no other choice.
But such an escalation...
Brother, you look like a fucking bratwurst. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? You look like you're gonna get skin cancer from being out in the fucking sun for too long. And you're over here being like, yeah, guys, go Bears. Fucking yeah. Yeah, as Israelis, we say, go Bears, you know? Just, what the fuck? That's right, dude. Go Bears.
Would have implications for the whole region. We're about 800 meters from the Gaza border, and this reserve brigade would be one of the ones that would go across if a ground invasion is ordered by the Israeli High Command. But the Americans are very worried about that. Last night's strikes on Iranian bases in Syria show that they're concerned about a wider war, and that any ground invasion of Gaza might trigger that. The Pentagon says US forces in northeast Syria and in Iraq, tasked with suppressing the Islamic State, have been attacked by Iranian-backed militia more than a dozen times in the last 3 weeks, and 21 service personnel have been injured, hence last night's F-16 attacks on Iranian assets. Last Thursday, the USS Carney in the Red Sea intercepted 4 cruise missiles and 15 drones fired towards Israel by the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. Yesterday, the Israelis held tank drills near the Lebanese border. They've been exchanging fire daily with Hezbollah, which is also backed by Iran.
I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine that we do not welcome to expansion of the war in the region. But I warn, if the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire.
The more Palestinian civilians are killed and injured in Gaza, the more anger swells across the region.
The people of Gaza are being shattered. 20 people were sleeping in one house. It wasn't expected. There was no advance warning. Among them, 10 were sleeping in one room. I can't believe that my kids came out of this alive. We struggled to pull them out. We are not involved in any fighting.
If Israel is now going in on the ground and the war continues at this pitch, Iran may see an opportunity, and Israel may find that its attempt to destroy Hamas triggers further threats.
Israel has gone to very far extent to preserve lives, not only our own lives.
Oh, come on, bro. They're so fucking bad at their jobs then. Like, I mean, it's not incompetence, okay? It's just, come on, dude. I feel like I feel like I have to sit here and take this shit fucking seriously, okay? It's so ridiculous. It's a fucking lie, brother. What are you saying? You don't have 7,000 accidents, okay? It's 100% by design. What a ridiculous fucking take. And by the way, if it wasn't 100% by design, they wouldn't fucking say human shields. Okay? They would say it's an oopsie. That's why the human shield narrative has to stick. Like, oh, Hamas is actually blocking the roads. Hamas is actually forcing people to stay at their homes at gunpoint, which is like a fucking insane thing to say, because it's not like there aren't journalists out there. This entire it's not like there aren't humans in fucking Palestine and Gaza. You can only make this argument stick if you believe that anyone who believes in Palestinian emancipation is not like a human being and is operating at this, as this like hive mind together. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're all keeping up this conspiracy and this fucking lie together because they just hate Israel. That's what it is. And if you follow Eye of Palestine, for example, even for 1 second, you immediately recognize that this is a lie. If the media covered even a fraction, if they offered a fraction of the coverage they did to Palestinian casualties, Palestinian civilians that are fucking ruthlessly slaughtered, okay? If they offered even a fraction of that, as they did to the countless hours of footage, which was understandably covered and given to the Israeli citizens that died on October 7, there would not be a question here. Everyone would fully understand what the fuck's going on. Okay? Yes, Eye of Palestine is back now. That's why I brought it up. Could you explain why Palestinians are not allowed to evacuate? Wonderful question. Israel won't let them. Like, think about it this way. Gaza has a border wall artificially constructed by Israel surrounding it, right? There's only one point that the Palestinians have, one mechanism, one means of escape is the Rafah crossing. Israel basically controls that by way of Egypt. Okay, but Gaza also has on its entire length, Gaza also has water surrounding it. It has beaches. Why can't the Gazan civilians escape by boat? Why can't the Gazan civilians on the other side of the border, which is bordered with Israel, why can't they go into Israel? Is there no way to go into Israel? Of course there is a way to go into Israel. Why won't Israel allow Gazan civilians to evacuate into Israel? Why? Why is this not a question that people ask? Why is that the only way? Why is it that the only way that Gazans can fucking evacuate potentially is into Egypt? And that is like after they allow a humanitarian corridor to be opened up. And that hasn't even opened up yet. Okay, because they don't want to leave their land. First of all, that's not true. I'm sure plenty of Gazan civilians would love to go into Israel, because then they know that that refugee status would not be fucking permanent. Okay? They also know that if they go into Egypt, though, they'll never be allowed to come back, because that's what Israel has done time and time again. Okay? Why doesn't Hamas give up the hostages? That's what needs to be asked. Great question. Don't you think this would be over if Hamas would give up the hostages? It's really that simple. You are out of your mind, because you're either completely oblivious to the fucking reality, or you are just only now learning about this issue, and your interests have been piqued since October 7th. Or maybe a third thing. Maybe you're just like disingenuously asking this question. Okay? The idea that Israel would stop the bombing campaign if Hamas gave up its hostages is fucking ridiculous, because it's self-defeating. Israel, in its bombing campaign, are killing some of the hostages. They've killed more than 20, according to the original numbers. I think it might even be more than that. So let me explain something to you. Why is it that Hamas has said, we want a ceasefire every single day? They're saying 50 now. Hamas says, we want a ceasefire every single day. And we will give you a hostage every single day. We will reveal these hostages to you every single day. Okay? Israel has said, fuck no. That is a mechanism to cease fire, and we don't want that. Even if our own hostages die, that's a price we're willing to take. That's a price we're willing to fucking pay. Why? This only works if you're completely oblivious to previous sieges, okay? It has taken much less than 200 hostages for Israel to go in and conduct what they call mowing the lawn inside of Gaza since they left Gaza and put up the border wall and fortified it and left Gaza. The real question is not, why doesn't Hamas give up the hostages? Because it's obvious. I know why they won't give up the hostages. They want fucking security assurances. They want a ceasefire. They want a prisoner exchange like that has happened in the past. Right? The real question isn't, why won't Hamas give up the hostages? The real question is, why doesn't Israel care about getting the hostages back if it means engaging in a ceasefire? Because let's say they do a ceasefire, right? Let's say they do a ceasefire. And people say like, oh, well, what if Hamas keeps bombing? Even in that process, if Hamas kept sending fucking rockets during that ceasefire, you have the Iron Dome. You know? You make some good points. Why do you never bring up giving back Native Americans their land? That's a wonderful question, okay? That's a great question, as a matter of fact. Great question. Land back movements would, in a normal universe, resemble exactly what I advocate for with respect to Israel and Palestine. A place where reparations are given to Native Americans, where they can conduct their affairs and have equal rights and equal representation under the law. This is my advocacy. This is what I believe in. Land back does not mean Native Americans come and like fucking cut your head off or something. Okay, that's not what I believe. And that's not what the Palestinians want either, for the record. The overwhelming majority of Palestinians just want to fucking live. That's what they want. They want dignity. They want to live a life of dignity, okay? That's what they fucking want. It would be incredible if the hostages were alive after the bombings. If they're still alive, it means that Israel literally bombed all of Gaza except where Hamas is. No, because hostages are probably being kept in the tunnel systems, and it's almost impossible to fucking get to that with aerial bombing campaigns. That's why it's ridiculous. It's a fruitless endeavor, and it's just ethnic cleansing when they do that bombing shit. As a Jew, I would like to ask you what you think the end result of the war is going to be. We all know... Oh, this is a great question, actually. We all know that there is not going to be a two-state solution, but what about all the Jews that call Israel their home with all the Arabs and Christians who live there? This is a great question. So first of all, I think the end result of this war is going to be, if it doesn't turn into like a three-front battle for Israel with like the IRGC and Hezbollah also joining and opening up like northern fronts, for example, all is going to happen is that Israel will conduct an ethnic cleansing campaign in northern Gaza territories, probably blow up a couple tunnel systems, use that as a major dub, probably kill a fuck ton of the hostages in the process, and then possibly, this is not my opinion on the matter, this is simply something that right-wing think tanks that are very close with Bibi Netanyahu have put forward as a way forward, which is a permanent occupation and annexation of the northern territories of Gaza. So that is probably what, if all things go well, according to what Israel's calculations are, then that is probably what will happen. You know what I mean? As far as like what happens in a universe where Israel loses, I guess, I don't think that is a case. There is a case for that. I don't think that could ever happen. But what I hope would happen is Israel cease fire, immediately implement peace negotiations, create an international tribunal for war criminals on both sides of the equation. And there are plenty, and especially a lot on the Israeli side. Come on, let's be fucking real. And one of the main ideas they're putting forward is some UN-run Arab governance of Gaza with the PA in charge. Not very realistic in my opinion. Yeah, because we see how the UN gets bullied by Israel on a daily fucking basis. Like taking the Palestinian Authority, which is comprised of Palestinians that Israel has effectively neutered while simultaneously propping up Hamas, and then offering that to the UN is additionally unserious. Is even more unserious because now you don't even have Palestinians in charge. So you've completely dropped the notion that there's even Palestinians leading the charge now. Also, there is no two-state solution without the complete fucking removal of every single settler from the West Bank. This is something that I have to stress to most of you that do not understand this. There are currently 500,000 plus settlers living in the West Bank. They are there illegally. It is completely illegal. They have no right to be there. By the international laws, they have no right to be there. Everybody understands that they are engaging in an act of terrorism, settler terrorism. Okay, it's not 500,000 plus. Sorry, 700,000 plus. You're right. I know it's a lot harder than this, but what do the Palestinian Arabs have to that land when there are so many other Arab territories surrounding Israel? I do not want a complete eradication. I do not think the IDF is doing the right thing, but it's still all hard to understand. That's a wild thing to say. What do you mean? What do they have to that land? It's their fucking home, dog. If I came to your home at gunpoint and like you heard that I had fucking violently butchered the neighborhood, other members of your a family in another neighborhood nearby, and then came to your house at gunpoint and said, get the fuck out, it's my house now, and you had to run away thinking that maybe once the violence ended, you'd be able to come back with your fucking key in your pocket, okay? You would definitely not have a hard time understanding the situation. You'd be like, this is insane that this happened to me. That's crazy. That's a crazy question to put forward. I mean, please. The only reason why this is hard to understand is, unfortunately, a lot of the programming that you go through is dehumanization, full-scale dehumanization of Palestinians. Like they're, straight up just fucking you know, an alien or something. Right? Like the idea that you just so callously put forward this this defense of ethnic displacement is kind of wild. Like, why won't they go away? I didn't mean it like that, and I'm sorry. Yeah, there's so many Arab territories surrounding Israel. Like, would you be fine if I fucking forcibly kicked you out of your neighborhood and then forced you at gunpoint to, like, go live somewhere else and you have to live in a fucking tent for the rest of your life? You probably wouldn't appreciate that. You probably want to fight back. Probably want to fight back with your life. No matter what happens, you probably want to get that back, especially if I killed your family members, right? Like, it's crazy. I do not want a complete eradication. I don't think the IDF is doing the right thing, but it's still hard to understand. I don't think it's that hard to understand. It's not complicated. As Michael Brooks used to say, rest in peace. Rest in power to Michael Brooks, Michael Jamal Brooks, the man. Not complicated. If 5 million Jews were put inside of a ghetto, 2 million of them inside of a fucking open-air concentration camp, okay, that 9 million Arabs that came over to that land, 9 million Muslim Arabs came over to that land, were operating and regularly bombing and cutting off their food, controlling their electricity, controlling their water supply, where 97% of the water that the Jews were drinking in that area, in that 2 million plus concentration camp was toxic, okay? You 100% would go, I know exactly what that is. That's happened to my people before, okay? You would know exactly what's going on there, okay? It's not complicated at all. All of the things that you've said has happened to Jews, everything you're listing and worse. Exactly. I know. Do you think I'm a fucking Holocaust denier? What are you, fucking stupid? I know that. That's why I'm using this example. Do you understand? The reason why I'm using this example is specifically because when you recognize that, that's when you recognize why there are so many Jews at the forefront of the anti-colonial movement, at the anti-apartheid movement, okay? So many academics, so many Jews in academia, for example, American Jews, Israeli Jews, scholars that are some of the most important voices in anti-Zionism. They recognize this reality. You choose not to. Yeah, Michael J. Brooks also said, my Jewish values teach me to oppose apartheid. Exactly. Let's continue.
The life of the Palestinian people as well, giving them notice on leaving.
A lot of people would say that was not true. We're talking about more than 7,000 Palestinians dead so far from the aerial bombardment. Yeah. The majority of them civilians. There are some pretty horrendous scenes coming out of there.
Yeah, I don't know about the numbers that are coming directly from the spokesperson of Hamas.
Of the Ministry of Health.
Of the Ministry of Health controlled by Hamas, but it is war, and in war...
Yeah, I mean, it's gross. This guy's fucking gross. Like, holy shit. I mean, but hey, do I fault him for this? Well, absolutely I do, because he's from Chicago, and, you know, fuck that. But why do I also understand why he has this fucking bloodthirsty position? Well, Joe Biden has the same fucking perspective. Joe Biden has the same fucking position. Think about how fucking gross that is, that the president of the United States of America said the exact same shit.
There are casualties, and, you know, there is a term that we use that's called collateral damage.
Collateral damage in Tel Aviv today, too. A rocket fired from Gaza got past the Iron Dome air defense system and crashed into an apartment block, injuring 3 people. Evidence that Hamas is still active despite Israel's onslaught. Last night, Israeli forces carried out another incursion into Gaza. Tonight's cutting of the internet and massive bombardment shows they have no intention of ceasing fire.
And we'll hear from Lindsay again at the end of the programme. Let's go to Washington and our correspondent Siobhan Kennedy. Siobhan.
Well, Matt, we've been watching the events going on inside the UN today, where the Arab world has called for a ceasefire. But it does show you really how powerless the UN has become, because as that debate is going on, so we have seen today Israel announce the imminent expansion of its ground operations in Gaza. There has been no immediate reaction from the White House to that announcement. We know that President Biden, it says, was briefed this morning by his national security team on the latest developments. But I can tell you that inside the UN, the United States had already made very clear that it would not back that resolution for the ceasefire, although we do know that it has called for a humanitarian pause. There were strong words inside the chamber today. The Egyptian ambassador talked about double standards from some within the UN, a veiled reference, I think, to the United States, who he believes should be calling for a ceasefire to end what he called the genocide in Gaza. Let's hear a clip from him now.
At a time where so many are turning a blind eye to the truth, silence is no longer an option. Enough is enough. We can no longer bear what is happening to the Palestinians.
The US ambassador to the UN did describe the situation as dire, but she said the US would not back the call for a ceasefire because the resolution lacked two critical words, she said, Hamas and hostages. Let's hear what she had to say.
It is outrageous that this resolution fails to name the perpetrators of the October 7th terrorist attack. Hamas. Hamas. Another key word missing in this.
It's because Hamas's rockets in the ceasefire is marginal as fuck. When they ask for a ceasefire, sure, they also mean Hamas as well, but they're under the assumption that Hamas will cease its operations, understandably so, the moment that Israel stops bombing, because it's in their fucking best interest to do so. And even if they don't actually cease their operations, their damage at best will be fucking marginal due to the Iron Dome missile defense system. Okay? And last but not least, Israel can then just turn around and continue its operations as they see fit. So the idea that like this condemnation has to 100% clearly define the boundaries and like make sure that it's a condemning Hamas, like, sure, okay, you have already condemned Hamas 1,000,000 times over. Yeah, this is something that I try to describe to my friends when they like worry about Jews potentially becoming a minority in Israel in a one-state secular solution, and it's like, don't worry. You can just go back to the apartheid structure if you are so terrified of becoming a minority. You know what I mean? You can just try it out. Give peace a chance. You know what I mean? Not like the current structure is not, the current structure is already fucking damning. You know? It's really bad. So give this other thing a shot for a little bit.
This resolution is hostage. These are omissions of evil, and they give cover to and they empower Hamas's brutality.
Well, the vote on that resolution is due at 8 p.m. UK time, Matt, but the Pentagon says that it is proceeding on the basis that there will be no agreement today on any ceasefire in Israel or Gaza. Matt.
Siobhan, thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now from Washington, D.C. is Mary Beth Long, who was U.S. Assistant Secretary of Defense under President George W. Bush, and from Doha, Nawaf Al-Thani, Qatar's former Director of Defense Intelligence Operations and Defense Attaché in the United States. Thank you very much to both of you for coming on. Let me start with you, Mary Beth. From what you've heard from the IDF this evening, does this sound to you like the beginning of this land invasion incursion?
Well, I think it's eminently foreseeable that in response to Gaza attacking, Hamas attacking the Israelis, that the Israelis would respond. And to the extent there are legitimate military targets in Gaza, and we all know that there are, this is, in fact, foreseeable. And it's a little mystifying to me, and I think the United States response to the UN resolution typifies the frustration on behalf of the United States, that what we don't understand is any recognition or even acknowledgement that it was Hamas that provoked this response from Israel, and Israel is entitled to respond.
But just briefly, you know, from everything we've heard so far, the internet is shut down in Gaza, phone lines are cut. And remarkably, there are no foreign leaders in Israel today. There have been virtually every other day for the last few weeks. Do you think this is the day that so many people have either been waiting for in this country or feared inside Gaza?
Well, certainly Hamas didn't prepare for it. I think you're right. I'm not clear that the internet is down because the towers and
I think they did. No, they did. There's a reason why Israel didn't want to do a ground operation for so long. The problem isn't IDF duking it out with Hamas. That's not an issue. I don't think anybody fucking considers that to be like unacceptable. You know what I mean? That's just two militaries warring. The problem is one military machine is just simply lasering fucking civilians non-stop.
and the facilities and infrastructure required is down, or whether that was a deliberate reaction by the Israelis. They somehow shut down the internet. But I do think this was foreseeable. And in fact, I think Hamas counted on Israel overreacting or reacting the way that it has so that it can turn around and try to tie the government of Israel's hand publicly.
Okay. Now, let me...
Okay, so don't you feel like Israel's playing into Hamas's hands then? So they have the opportunity to not be fucking violent, bloodthirsty animals here. Like, she basically just said Hamas tied Israel's hands. Like, they have to behave this way. Okay, the right thing to do here is to not give in then, right? For those who don't understand what she's saying, Israel is being forced to do ethnic cleansing is what she's saying, okay? She's saying Hamas forced Israel's hand. Like, there's nothing else that they can do. And in that situation, I mean, the carelessness of the callous indifference to the humans that are being fucking destroyed, the lives that are being destroyed, the kids that are being killed is pretty obvious. Because the major problem that she has is not necessarily that, like, Palestinian children are being fucking lasered out of the sky with Israeli rockets, but instead, you know, Israel's going to feel bad, or the world is going to get mad at Israel, and that's a big problem.
Turn to you. I mean, Qatar has played a remarkable role in negotiating between Israel and Hamas. You have, you know, Hamas's political leader is based in Doha, where you are. If indeed this is the ground invasion that we've been talking about for so long, does that mean that any release of the hostages, any negotiations about their release, has been put on hold or possibly finished?
Well, it makes it very difficult, definitely. We don't know if it's going to affect it, but we can only imagine, with everything going on the ground, the expansion of the operation or the start of a land invasion would make any negotiation even harder.
But this land invasion might have been put off for a few days or weeks. It was always going to happen there, wasn't it?
That is true, at least from the Israeli rhetoric. But on the other hand, we've seen tangible results from Qatari negotiation. We've seen Israeli citizens being released. We've seen American citizens being released. So this is not a pie in the sky or an imaginary or an unguaranteed approach. We've seen results, and I think the Israeli government should have given this approach more of a chance, and it still
No
can.
shot.
But unless the Israelis show seriousness,
bro, no fucking shot. They released two telegenic hostages that probably were like the best that Hamas could find at given the circumstances, that were like sympathetic to their humanity or something. And they used that as an opportunity to just implement a 6-hour ceasefire so that the hostages could be delivered, right? And that was a major PR fuck up by Israel's own admission. I'm not saying that. Israel literally was like, why did you let the hostages on camera speak to microphones, you fucking idiots? They literally yelled at the hospital staff. Once that happened, the first thing that American authorities and the Israeli authorities as well said was, Hamas is using the hostages as a means of postponing the ground invasion. Under normal circumstances, you should look at that and go, okay, we'll deal with the hostages. Let them out. But we don't live in a normal universe where people have the capacity to understand exactly what's happening. Like, the fuck do you mean? Like, there is no hostage negotiation structure where a bank robbery is happening, right? And the bank robbers took hostages. And you go, and the bank robbers are like, please, we're just going to release hostages one by one. And the cops go, no, I don't care. I'm bombing the fucking bank. Nah, keep the hostages, dog. I'm going to fucking kill you and the hostages, actually. Why would Israel take a hostage deal that releases convicted terrorists in return? Because you don't know anything. You do not know anything. There are currently more than 11,000 Palestinians, even before October 7th, that was in Israeli prison. And literally like 200 of them are actually people that have done a real crime, okay? They're not convicted terrorists at all. You fucking idiot. Also, Israel has done a hostage swap in the past with Gilad Shalit. 1,000 Palestinians were released from prison in exchange for one singular IDF soldier. The reason why Israel can do that is twofold. One, they project the image that, one Israeli is worth the lives of 1,000 Palestinians. And secondly, not only that, oh, so if you know they released Sinwar, look at what Sinwar did after the Gilad Shalit deal. Oh, so you do know. You're just a piece of shit. Got it. Okay. Okay, never mind. Yeah. You are familiar. Okay. The real reason why they could release 1,000 fucking Palestinians out of prison is because it is not... The Palestinians are in prison for ridiculous reasons, not for real reasons. This is my favorite type of chatter because he is also aware of the facts that he speaks of. He's just a piece of shit. You know what I mean? At least this guy is like straight up. At least he's not like completely oblivious and coming in here and being like, I don't understand. October 7th was like the first time anything happened. Israel was just peacefully coexisting alongside Gazans, and then look at how they repaid that favor. It's really fucked up. Problem is the Israeli government got a lot of backlash for some people that were released and then returned and committed more terror attacks. Yeah, man. That's the real problem. Israel's getting a lot of backlash for not being more ruthless. Guess what, dude? October 7th also fucking happened because Israel and the Israeli government refused to fucking reckon with the goddamn reality of operating a fucking open-air prison. If Gideon Levy, the Haaretz editorial board, formative Holocaust historians, Knesset members such as Ofer Kassif recognize that if literal people in Kibbutz Be'eri who were victimized by these attacks have the moral clarity to understand that. Why can't you? Why can't you? They recognize it, and their fucking friends and family members were slaughtered. Go ahead. Can you explain just from a psychological perspective how humans can be so inhuman and convinced that they're still doing the right thing? I don't really understand this. I mean, everybody thinks their cause is just. That's it.
In actually releasing the hostages by the cessation of hostilities, I don't know if that could work.
So briefly, to be clear on that front, if the tanks roll in en masse, any negotiations, parallel negotiations about releasing hostages are going to be virtually impossible. Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's an unknown factor. Once you enter into a ground invasion, it becomes definitely more difficult, but we don't know. And I think the unknowing of the outcome is a very dangerous thing, because unless the negotiators can have a chance to negotiate with someone on the other side, then the negotiations may not succeed. The unknowing is the dangerous part.
Sure. Mary Beth, America is worried about an expansion of this conflict. From the very beginning, after Black Saturday, they were very clear about posting more forces into the Eastern Mediterranean. We had these airstrikes overnight against Iranian-backed militiamen. I mean, is there a danger that these preemptive strikes could actually provoke a wider conflict, or is this the thing that prevents that wider conflict?
Well, I think that the conflict, as you point out, is wider, and it's more than that. U.S. forces have been attacked by Iranian proxies repeatedly, actually, this week in Syria. We also are suffering attacks in Iraq. We spoke to Iraqi leadership several days ago, and those attacks are ongoing, so it has spread. The question is, and you appropriately raise it, how far will this expansion go? Right now, the side that is expanding extraterritoriality is the Iranian proxies. I think thus far, everyone else has been in a defensive posture, and I would hope that that would continue to contain what Iran is doing, actually, by attempting actively to spread this to other territories.
Nawaf Al-Thani, you know Hamas well. You've talked to them. As I said before, they're based in Doha, or some of their political leadership is. Israel has said it wants to eliminate Hamas, wipe it from the face of the earth. Is that even possible?
Well, it's unclear what they want to eliminate. Is it the ideology, the groups? And then tactically, how is that even possible when Gaza is under siege and no way in and no way out for help or aid? It seems like it's impossible to differentiate between civilians and combatants in that scenario. And as we've seen as your reporting has proven, over 6,000 killed in Gaza. Whatever policy the Israelis or the IDF is carrying out seems to not be working the way they've projected it to the public.
And very briefly, when the Iranian foreign minister says, as he did today, that more genocide, as he put it, in Gaza will make the statesmen of America pay, you take that seriously?
Well, I think any escalation in the region should be taken seriously. I think if it goes beyond Gaza, then everyone involved, the whole region will be engulfed in a calamity. And I don't think anyone in this part of the world or anyone everywhere else are ready for another forever war as we've had in the past. So I think it's serious, and that's why the Israelis should show equal seriousness in stopping this.
We're going to leave it there. Nawaf Al-Thani, Mary Beth Long, thank you very much to both of you there. Well, back in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer is under growing pressure from senior members of his own party to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The Labour leadership's official stance is to call for humanitarian pauses to allow aid to get through. But now the mayors of London and Manchester, along with the Scottish Labour leader, say that's not enough to prevent further deaths. Amelia Jen has this report.
With the international community arguing over whether to push.
I think one thing to recognize about the hostage situation with Hamas is that, like, the human shield strategy, right? Human shield strategy works if you don't believe that the Palestinians are like real human beings, like their lives are worthy of preservation and protection. But when you take Israelis and also other nationalities as well, like foreign nationals as well, as hostages, and Israel still operates with the same impunity, with the same level of disinterest for the preservation of their lives, all of a sudden there are going to be family members who fucking go, wait a minute, this hostage, what do you mean, human shield? The fuck do you mean? That human shield is my husband. That human shield is my father. That human shield is my wife. The fuck are you doing? You can't shoot through the hostage. You can't fucking do that. That's my kid. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, it's impossible for you to have your previous shields are, you know, simply collateral damage. And that is something to consider here. That's something that is important. Hello? Hello? Look who it is. Fifi. Fifito. Sorry.
For a humanitarian pause or a full ceasefire in Gaza, Sir Keir Starmer's call for the former is exposing fault lines not just with his grassroots. Today, three of Labour's best-known figures away from Westminster broke ranks. The London Mayor Sadiq Khan first.
I joined the international community in calling for a ceasefire. It would stop the killing and would allow vital aid supplies to reach those who need it.
A few hours later, Scotland's Labour leader Anna Sarwar.
And let me be clear, that means a ceasefire right now, and we need a proper peace process. Because sadly, right now, there is no peace and there is no process.
And then Andy Burnham, Mayor of Greater Manchester.
The Mayor, Deputy Mayor and attendees of Greater Manchester join the growing international calls for a ceasefire.
On. The Manx came out before the Scousers did? The fuck's going on in England, dude? That's crazy. That's wild. We clear those Scouser frauds? No, this is crazy times. Andy Burnham is a top lad, to be fair. We don't talk about what's going on with Labour in Liverpool. Manchester is the north as well, very pro-Labour. Scousers don't have a mayor? Wait, what do you mean? Does Liverpool not have a mayor? I actually don't know. Or any representative whatsoever? Like, the fuck? Why? I'm learning about England. Yeah, I'm learning about England. How is the UK real? Dude, it's not. Leader of the city council now. They got rid of the mayor this year in Liverpool. Most places in the UK don't have mayors with actual power. Okay, that's fine. But like some kind of leadership. What the fuck is going on in the UK, dude? They're like abolishing mayoral positions and shit. What's happening, dude? You guys got to figure it out. Never mind. It's fine. It's fine. You guys don't have to have a take on Palestine, Israel. I've decided. Just figure it out on your own. You know what I mean? Yeah, Liverpool doesn't even have a mayor. Meanwhile, our governor is meeting Xi Jinping.
By all sides.
Tensions within the party have been growing since this interview with LBC.
A siege is appropriate? Cutting off power, cutting off water? Sakir?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
Starmer later clarified.
God, he's such a bitch-made ass dumb motherfucker who has literally been handed power like it gift wrapped. And he still sucks. I hate him. I hate what has happened to the labor movement in the fucking UK. I cannot stand the current Labour Party. They had like a brief moment, a shining beacon of light within the Labour Party with Corbyn. You know, I'm not going to say was blameless, right? I mean, he was the most attacked man in the UK for the most unjustifiable shit. Specifically, the charge of anti-Semitism. However, and which was weaponized in that regard, by the way. It was literally weaponized against like socialist forces within labor, specifically to bring back more conservative labor leadership. The Tony Blairites, Tony Blair, as they say in Kosovo, in small Kosovo, Tony Blair.